This is how to brew a deck on a budget. This would be impossible without Scryfall.com. Thanks, Scryfall. I recorded my process live. I got really deep into the exploration part, which is this part 1. The next part's going to be the specific 100 cards that make up the budget deck. Under 50 bucks. Which one of the commanders that I explored in this video should I make a budget deck out of? Let me know in the comments. Now let's get on to the budget brew. Okay, let's open up Scryfall, see what we got. Who's going to be the commander? The type is going to be legendary. That could be enchantment creature, artifact creature, or just creature, and then creature. And I think the price, we got to do budget. So USD less than, that's greater than, less than $1. If every card in a commander deck is $1, that's still a $100 deck. That's too high, but I think if the commander costs more than the average card, that's acceptable. I'm going to do sort by EDH rec just to see the most popular ones. You know, I actually don't feel like doing a monocolor deck. I know that's a great way to get a huge discount because then you have to worry about lands, but I don't think lands have to be expensive anymore. So I'm going to say colors greater than 1. That means things that have at least 2 colors. That didn't work. Colorless greater than 1? Oh, I said less than 1. And I always mix that up. The alligator eats the bigger one. There's 562. I'm also going to try to find a commander that I don't know a lot about. Definitely one I've never brewed a deck around before, and one that seems interesting but I just never thought about it much. Emoti, Celebrant of Bounty. Cascade on a 5-drop, and whenever you cast a spell with converted mana cost 6 or greater, you've got Cascade. Could be fun. I'm going to open a new tab here and look at Simic cards that are cheap that have mana value 6 or higher. So I'm going to pick ID Simic. This will give me all cards within the Simic color identity. The main deck has to be super cheap, so I'm going to say USDD less than alligator eats the money, 50 cents. I'm going to do sort by EDH rec. Ooh, I don't want to look at lands right now, so minus type land, and I want to see mana value greater than or equal to 6. Rampaging Balos is 50 cents. Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time, those are cheap and they're perfect because we'll be able to cast them for way less than 6. Endray's Forerunners, that's a win con. Flood of Tears, Cyclonic Rift at Home. Inkwell Leviathan is just a classic. It's a bit of an old school commander card at this point. Sekishima's Protege, very interesting. Has Cascade itself, and it can enter as a permanent that entered the battlefield this turn. Now this actually works better for us because the Cascaded thing will hit the battlefield first, and if we get something awesome, the Protege can become that. Verdant Forest, that's a pretty good token thing. You know what, I'm not going to sort by EDH rank. I think it's been cool, but I think I want to see newer cards. Cards I haven't heard of recently. I think that's where we're going to find the inspiration. Sort by release date. Oh, you know what? I think since we're dealing with 6 mana value things that are cheap, we're no longer in EDH rec range, so we're going to get a lot of like uncommons and commons, which are probably going to be too much like duds for us. So I'm going to say rarity is greater than or equal to rare. We've already got the 50 cents filter on here, so I'm not worried about mythics and rares being expensive because we're filtering out the expensive stuff. Just that rares do more. Oh, and then we've got things like Arcanus and Kamal Fist of Krosa, which are cool, but I think we need to say is not reprint. Minus is reprint. The Juggernaut. Juggernaut's attack each turn of Able. They can be blocked by walls, but other creatures become 5/3 Juggernauts. This seems to make sense with our token idea. Let's keep that in the back of our minds. Ooh, Wondrous Crucible? Okay, it's a 7-drop, pretty expensive, but we do get to cascade with it. At the beginning of our end step, you mill 2 cards, exile a non-land card at random, and you copy it, and you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. That's cascadable if it's big enough. Promising. If we do want to go this route, we will have to lean on the green side of things to do a ton of ramping. Nothing wrong with that. The World Spell. This is less than 50 cents? 7 mana, put 2 permanents from your hand onto the battlefield. If we're dealing with major 7-drops anyway, or 6 or greater, this seems like an auto-include. Ooh, Tomb of Horrors Adventurer. 6 mana spell, Elf Monk 4/4, but you also take the initiative, which could be a drawback depending on how you feel about the initiative. Burn. But whenever you cast your second spell, copy it. And if you've completed a dungeon, copy the spell twice. Okay, so yeah, this works. Cascade counts as casting the spell. So if we have the Tomb of Horrors Adventurer out, We're going to cast our first spell, which will be 6 mana value or greater, ideally. We will cascade into a second spell, and we will copy that cascaded spell. It kind of turns our cascade first per turn into a double cascade. And if we've completed a dungeon, a triple? Okay. Wild Endeavor. What an interesting card. You roll 2d4. One of them, you make 3/3 beasts, and the other one, you find basics. Let's just keep it average. Let's say you roll a 2 and a 3. If we've got a lot of ramp, we can decide to go with the beasts as the 3. And if it's looking like we don't need the tokens and we would like a little bit more mana, I imagine getting to 12 mana would be super clutch. Being able to cast 2 things in a turn, that seems strong. It's obviously not the most reliable or the most efficient, but this is a budget deck. Wizard Spellbook. Okay, so we're going to exile an instant or sorcery from a graveyard, which is probably one of our gigantic 6 or 7 mana ones. And if we roll a 1 to 9, we get to copy and cast the copy. That counts as casting. That's going to be a cascade trigger. I think the cool part is we might roll a 10 or higher. That way we get to pay 1 for these expensive spells. Okay, that's looking good. Yes, okay, so Verdant Mastery. This is one that we can pay the big amount or the small amount. If you pay the small amount, you help your opponents a little bit. But paying the small amount, this is still a 6 mana value card, so we will still get to cascade even if we pay 4 for this. If we do pay 4, we search up 4 basics, 2 for us, 1 for an opponent, 1 in our hand. And if we pay the big amount, 2 for us, 2 in our hand, none for our opponents. And it does go on 1 opponent's control, so I think paying the 4 in Commander is pretty good. That means we get to do a little bit of politics, and we get our cascade trigger. I'm liking this. That takes us to the bottom of the page. I'm not going to go further here because I don't want to lock in the first idea only. Let's keep exploring. I know Adriana, Captain of the Guard, is powerful. She is also a CEDH card, but I don't want to pick a commander who will automatically have a huge reputation. It's hard to do a budget deck around a card that everybody kind of expects a certain thing from, because they won't treat you like a budget deck. They're going to assume you're kind of powerful. And maybe that's a reason to look for Adriana. Maybe not her specifically, but that would mean that we might be able to come up with a deck that is powerful, but still budget. Rexiol's under $1. It's another card that used to be expensive. Bit of an other people's stuff kind of deck, but I am looking for stuff that is a little bit unfamiliar to me. Zara Renegade Recruiter. Flying. Whenever she attacks, you look at defending player's hand. Okay. Intel. You may put a creature card from it onto the battlefield under your control tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. Okay. Return it to the owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So we could sacrifice the creature. If we have a sack outlet on board, our opponents will surely hate that this is happening and they will destroy Zara every second they can. I think we either have to protect her with hexproof a lot, or we have to promise our opponents we won't sacrifice them. But then they still have to attack them. Well, that's a tough sell. I don't think you could keep Zara on the board. And if you can't keep your commander on the board, we're just building, is it value? And if we're doing that, we won't pick Zara. So I'm going to pass. Okay, going to the next page. Page 2 of 562 cards. We look at 60 at a time. There's a lot of pages. So I just realized by sorting by EDH Rec, the top pages will be filled with the cheapest, most popular commanders. Cheapest because I've set the range to be less than $1, and popular because that's how I'm sorting them. I think we might be able to find something cool if we go the other direction. Instead of sorting auto, I'm going to sort by descending. So this will give me the least popular commanders that are under $1 over 1 color, and it moves up. So the first couple of pages ought to be only full of things that are new. I can already see that a lot of these are illegal, so I'm going to add legal commander. Some of these are only cards that are legal in Commander. And look at this, tons of whiteboard stuff. Interesting though that there are 2 unset commanders first. Roxy, Publicist to the Stars, is a sticker commander. Okay, I get why that's low. Tusk and Whiskers is another sticker. And like those tickets. So I see why those are super low. Then we get all those white border original legends. And some of these got expensive. I guess these must be versions that aren't. So I'm just going to kind of skip through there. We got more unset commanders, tickets, rolling dice. Okay, now we're getting to some actual commanders of the modern era, not from unsets. I guess that would make Tobias Doomed Conqueror the lowest ranked modern era non-unset commander. Should we do that anyway? 4 mana, 3/2 flash. When Tobias Doomed Conqueror dies, for each non-token creature you controlled that died this turn, create a zombie. This dude just eats board wipes. And then your whole team dies, and then you get a whole bunch of zombies. There are some cards that synergize with him. All those cards that say whatever went to the battlefield this turn, bring them back. But are those cheap? And do we want to do that? It might work. I have to look. So I need cards that are white and blue or colorless. And I want ones that say return something something battlefield and something something this turn. We'll see if that turns anything up. Okay, yeah, we got some hits. So I think we did it right. I think we did the search correctly. So now I'm going to say USD less than 50 cents. We got one option, Revivify, and then you got to roll dice. Roll a d20 and add the number of creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So that'll be like +5 to 6 to 8, I don't know, something like that. So 1 to 14, we return all of them that were put there this turn to your hand. We will still get our zombies. And then 15 plus, return them to the battlefield. Okay, so if we have at least 5 creatures die this way, then that gives us a 50-50 shot. And it is only 3 mana. So I think I'm going to expand the budget here. Not the overall budget, but I think if your deck has to do one thing, I think it's okay to spend a couple of bucks on a card or two, as long as everything else is less than 50 cents. We can still get a budget deck that way. So I'm going to sort these by USD. Twilight Shepherd is, well, it's 53 cents. I think we're good. How much is Faith's Reward? That's $1.50. Okay, that's getting as expensive as I'm comfortable with if we're aiming for 50 bucks. So that gives us a few options. Out of curiosity, how much is Second Sunrise? 2 and a bit. Doable, but that means all players return things, and I'm less interested in that. If we're going to center this around Wrath specifically, okay. If we do want to do Tobias and want to do the lowest popularity commander of the modern era that is not an unset, then we gotta look up what Wraths cost. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are no blue Wraths that might work, but I guess I'll include it anyway. So ID, white, blue. The creatures have to go to the graveyard. So the Oracle text will have to say something like destroy something something creatures. We'll see what that does. Okay, I can see here Akroma's Vengeance says destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. So I think this search will get us what we want. Now let's narrow it down by budget. I'm going to say under 50 cents. Oh, okay. Cleansing Nova, Citywide Bust, Dusk destroys all creatures with power 3 or greater. And then Citywide Bust destroys all creatures with toughness 4 or greater. Tobias has 2 toughness and is a 4 mana card. Yep, okay, so Tobias would get destroyed by Dusk, but do we want Tobias to be destroyed? We want Tobias to die as well. Okay, we've got options here. If these are all less than 50 cents, Cleansing Nova's fine. Akroma's Vengeance is good. Depopulate might draw our opponent's cards, but it's a 4 mana Wrath, who cares? Dusk, if we brew the deck correctly, would work, and then Dawn might also work for us. No, we could do this. If we have an Anthem on board, all the cards will have 2 power in the graveyard, but they'll have 3 power on the battlefield. That could work, but I'm not going to go there yet. No shortage of 5 mana Wraths that cost less than 50 cents. So, I don't know, Tobias. Maybe. That might be too annoying as a budget deck. It's like, hey, do you mind if I play this budget deck, the least popular commander that from the modern era that is not from an unset? Yeah, cool, okay. All right, here you go. Wrath. It's like, what are your opponents are not going to be able to do anything. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to keep looking, but I think there's a deck here. There's definitely a deck here. Lady of Otaria, the second least popular. This is the red-green dwarf commander. Tap 3 untapped dwarves. You don't have to pay Lady of Otaria's mana cost. Now that does not get around commander tax. Commander tax is added on to things. So even if you can cast something for free, commander tax does apply. At the beginning of each end step, if a land you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn, tons of lands are fetch lands, but not the expensive ones, like Terramorphic Expanse, Evolving Wilds. There's tons like that. So we can make it so that this happens most turns. If we do reveal the top 4 cards of your library, you may put any number of dwarfs from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, hear me out. 7 dwarves. We get to run up to 7 cards in the deck like this. So that's pretty good. That gives us at least a base of dwarves. How many other dwarves are there? It has to be green or red as color ID. And the type is dwarf. Oh yeah, we got those weird online arena ones. So legal commander. 49 USD, less than 50 cents. 35. Wait, is 7 dwarves cheap? Yes, thank goodness. 42 cents. So 35 cards, but one of those cards gets to be 7. That's 41. We are allowed to have 41 dwarf cards in the deck. So I think we'll get to put a lot of them into our hands. That means 7 dwarves getting +1/+1 for each other creature named 7 dwarfs. Okay, so that's the thing. It doesn't work with dwarves. It works with 7 dwarfs only. But here's why I'm going down this road. There was an old Commander's Brew episode that was all about doing 7 dwarves with Mirror March. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, flip a coin until you lose a flip. For each flip you won, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste, and you exile at the beginning of the next end step. So, Mirror March is a bad card. But it's more than 50 cents? I can't believe it. It's probably because it's so fun. People want to play with it. If your first flip is a loss, you get nothing. You've spent 6 mana on this enchantment and you get nothing for it. But if you win, you keep flipping and you make another copy. And the way 7 dwarves stack is if we can make a few of them at once, we can attack for a lot. Each one gets +1/+1 for all of the 7 dwarves you control. 7 dwarves, +7/+7. 15 dwarves, +15/+15. If we can give trample to these things, this is a game-winning play. Or I should say, this is an attempt to win the game play. But all those dwarves are under 50 cents. Most of them don't matter. So I guess the problem is most of your deck doesn't matter. Rasputin the Oniromancer. When he enters the battlefield, put a dream counter on it for each opponent you have. So I'm going to assume 3. Each opponent creates a 1/1 red goblin creature token. Okay, so far so bad. Tap, remove 1 or more dream counters. Add that much colorless mana. Remove a dream counter from Rasputin, create a white knight creature token with protection from red to block the goblins. So without haste, we don't get to make one of those right away. We get a little bit of ramp, but then we remove all our dream counters. So I think right away you want to look into proliferate. And so, okay, so let's mark this for future proliferate decks. If you want to proliferate mana rocks and you are an Azorius, Rasputin should go in the deck because that's what he does. But I'm not inspired. I'm going to move on. Oh, the Ever-Changing Dane. This is a card that has always been interesting to me, but I haven't had the brain power to figure out. Yeah, and I still don't have it. Not with the budget restriction. Okay, Aisha Tanaka Armorer. 5 mana 2/4 Human Artificer. Whenever Aisha attacks, okay, so it's an attack trigger. Already a little bit of a tall order. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can put any number of artifact cards with mana value less than or equal to Aisha's power from among them on the battlefield tapped, rest on the bottom in a random order. It's tempting, but it's tough, right? Because there's good value here. We can easily put some equipment on Aisha so that Aisha's power is very big. Then we're going to flip 4 cards and we'll put basically all of the artifact cards. The issue then becomes if your opponents see you suiting up like this, they will surely try to destroy Aisha so you don't get that attack trigger. It's kind of fragile. And if we are inclined to put in equipment and expensive artifacts without the commander, it just sucks to have to pay them the hard way. Okay, there's a decent look so far. I'm going to have some lunch and come back and look some more in a bit. But to you, you'll just see a cool transition and we'll be back to the job. Good lunch. Let's keep looking. Jedit Ojanen Mercenary. What cares about cats? So this is in the Bant color scheme. I don't need it to be a cat. I want it to care about cats. So the Oracle text will say cat. And because we're looking for the budget, USD, less than 50 cents. Okay, so I have found things that also say fabricate because the letters cat appear in fabricate. If I put quotation marks around it, it finds it exactly. So if I put spaces before and after the word cat, then it won't find longer words with cat in it. Okay, down to 18. Seems good. So I'm realizing a lot of these don't necessarily care about cats. They just make cat tokens, which will be in the Oracle text. So let's see how many actually care about cats. Create cats, create cats, create cats. Okay, so Kemba Ka Enduring cares about cats to remove equipment around. Okay, Raksha Golden Cub. As long as the cub is equipped, cats get +2/+2 and have double strike. That's pretty amazing. 7 mana, but that's powerful. And Kemba Ka Enduring means we can equip it very easily for free, essentially. It'll enter the battlefield, and then we automatically attach a piece of equipment to it. Okay, so very few things actually care about cats. Good to know. Lots of ways to make cats, though. Big, wide team. Another kind of go wide indicator. Oh, hey, Kethek, we just did an episode on you. Next page. Ispiri the Inscrutable is fascinating. Again, it's an older card. I've looked at this card before. Has to deal combat damage to a player, 3/6 flying. Good evasion, but hard to get through if they have any flying blockers. And you kind of have to do it twice. Like the first time you hit him, you don't know what's in their hand, so you kind of have to hit them again so that now that you have an idea what's in their hand, and at best you just get a creature with flying into your hand. The most work for a tutor ever. You know, it almost feels like when we started with the bottom of the barrel, they were a little bit weird abilities, which seemed inspiring. They seemed like I wanted to brew around them. You know how like if a movie's like really, really bad, it's fun, but if a movie's just medium bad, it's just bad. I think we've gotten into the part where these ones don't have a lot of decks around them because they're not that interesting. You know what? I did like Naam Shai Murad, right? It's political. You pick something from my graveyard, I'll pick something from your graveyard. But I do like the idea of manipulating our own graveyard to the point where they don't get to choose. Like we only have good stuff. I guess they can choose between good stuff. They have to pick permanents. So instants and sorceries are fine. And if we could have a way to like just snipe all the lands and all the tiny stuff out of our graveyard, that seems good. So I had fun looking at big 6-drops that were under 50 cents that I hadn't thought of before. Let's do that for white and black cards. Okay, so these cards are going to be white and black. The USD is going to be less than 50 cents. The mana value is going to be greater than or equal to 6. And then once we're in here, we're going to sort by release date. I'm going to look at the newest ones because those are the ones I may have missed because they just released too many these days. Oh yeah, and we were going to do rarity, rare or better, because sometimes there's uncommons at 6 that are basically vanilla creatures. Rarity, greater than rare. Greater than or equal to rare. 307 cards. Not surprised. Oh yeah, I'm getting all the like weird reprints, so I'm going to say minus is reprint. I would consider a Spine of Ishsa, but I don't want to see it in this search right now. Down to 227. I see an acorn. I don't want the acorn here. Okay. Legal Commander. There we go. Wire Surgeons. Fear. Okay. Each artifact creature in your graveyard has Encore. Huh. That is a nice way to get cheap artifacts out of our graveyard. Okay, I'm interested. I guess one drawback is that if we have Wire Surgeons in our graveyard and little artifact creatures in our graveyard, our opponents will guaranteed give us the little artifact creatures before the Wire Surgeons. And that's just true of any big thing. They'll always give us a little thing before they give us a big thing. That is, unless we can negotiate. There is the negotiation side. I like this commander. Maybe I can convince someone to give me Wire Surgeons if I let them have something awesome back from their graveyard. All right. Terror Ballista, although not the most interesting off the top, does point out that Unearth also works quite nicely. If we have something cheap that's useful early and it has Unearth, we can get itself out of the graveyard. But if we're looking at political stuff, I'm going to change this search. Obviously white-black, obviously USD less than 50 cents. What cards say choose an opponent? Oracle text, choose an opponent. Ooh, okay, so choosing opponents, obviously, I'm sure we'll get some curses if we look here. I don't see any curses. Maybe because curses just say target opponent, they don't choose an opponent. Anyway, Beckoning Will-o'-the-Wisp. 3 mana flying, lure the unwary. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose an opponent. Creatures attacking the last chosen player get +1/+0. I don't think this card is perfect, but I think it gives me the idea that we can also put in things, political cards in our graveyard, permanents, that if we fail to negotiate, like if we're trying to negotiate and our opponent says like, no, I won't do that, they also kind of can't pick cards like this because we will choose them as retribution. That's a big part of this process. You find cards that give you the idea, and then you look deeper for that specific thing. I just want to see if there's cheap ways to target remove cards from graveyards. White, black, less than 50 cents. Here's where we got to use the weird stuff. So here's where we got to use the weird stuff. In the Oracle text, I want there to be a mana cost. I don't know how to generically search for a mana cost at all, but if there was one, there would be a colon. So there has to be a colon, which means it's an ability, and then some stuff. You always exile cards from graveyards, so exile a bunch of words, card, a bunch of letters and spaces and punctuation, graveyard. I think that'll do it. Let's see what it gives us. Exile target card from a graveyard. Okay, so I think this is going to work. So Apostle of Purifying Light lets us exile a thing for 2 mana. Pricey. Especially if we do any sort of milling. Like, we have to exile every land. We can probably engineer it so the only permanents we care about are great stuff anyway. You know, now that I think about it, that's a good move too. We probably don't need to stack the deck with too much stuff that removes things from graveyards if we just have wicked stuff to bring back. Famished Ghoul lets us pay 2 to exile 2 cards, which is nice. No taps. If we only have big cards that our opponents have to give back, maybe we can just have a bunch of fun because we don't care what they pick. Everything's awesome. Oh, and I suppose I need to pick is permanent because they can't give us back instants and sorceries. The War in Heaven brings some creatures back, but they have to have mana value combined 8 or less, which is unlikely unless most of our low value permanents happen to be things that exile things from graveyard. Elder Brain. I remember people talking about this, but I don't remember the card. Whenever Elder Brain attacks a player, exile all cards from that player's hand. Wow. Then draw that many cards. Okay. You may play lands and cast spells from among the exiled cards for as long as they remain exiled. If you cast a spell this way, spend mana of any color. Okay, this is whenever it attacks, doesn't have to do combat damage. See, this is the like later era design. You look at old commanders and it's like only when combat damage, but then they started adding things where it's like, why not just let people do the thing? That's what I'm thinking with this deck. We find big, powerful permanents and we make sure that they have no good choices. Anyway, enough about this deck. Let's keep looking. Ultra Magnus is a Naya Transformer. Ward 2, 7/7. I mean, whenever you see 7 power in a commander, you have to consider Voltron. 3 hits is a win. Although, you know what? Maybe I'm old school. Maybe that's not good anymore because 21 commander damage, games are tighter. Like, I don't think you have as many combat steps as you used to. Whenever Ultra Magnus attacks, you may put an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Okay, so big, huge artifact creatures. Transform Ultra Magnus at the end of combat. Convert, I get it. 4/7 with haste, living metal, so you can always attack, you don't need to crew it. Whenever the vehicle side attacks, attacking creatures get indestructible if those creatures have total power 8 or greater. Wow. Okay, there's like a Naya big combat deck. It seems doable. It has to be artifact creature cards, and we want big ones. Let's start with mana value 6 or greater. That seems to be our thing. Mana value greater than or equal to 6. And this time I want to sort by mana value. And I want to go descending because I want to start with the most expensive things. Oops, I forgot they had to be artifacts. Okay, what happens after it's tapped and attacking? Whenever it attacks, tapped and attacking. Oh, that's it. It's just on the battlefield forever. It doesn't get the indestructible because that's the other side of Ultra Magnus. Okay. See, I'm interested in stuff like Woodcaller Automaton because it has an ETB. So, and it's an 8/8, which is a nice attacker. If you cast it, we won't ever be casting it. Bosch Iron Golem. I mean, we'll be putting big artifacts onto play, so being able to sacrifice other ones seems okay. Graz is interesting because it makes everything juggernauts, and Ultra Magnus's car side gives everything indestructible, which is like completes the juggernaut dream. I mean, budget decks can be meme decks sometimes, and I think this one, it seems interesting. I've always been intrigued by a Graz deck, but it just doesn't seem possible to make enough tokens and stuff in a a colorless deck, a 0 color deck. But if you open up to Naya, we've got access to the best token makers in the biz. Okay, I'm interested. Okay, I want artifact creatures with an enter the battlefield ability. So the type stays, and I want to add Oracle when ... enters. Now, it will also give us stuff like whenever a goblin enters, but I don't hate that. Sometimes those little discoveries can point us in a different direction that we might want to brew around. Oh yeah, back to Woodcaller Automaton, that we have to cast it. Okay, I'm taking away Oracle if you cast it because I don't want to go through that emotional journey again. Minus Oracle if you cast it. And then that friggin' first one is not legal, so I'm going to add legal commander. This is the longest search I've ever done. Okay, here we go. There are 14 cards. Okay, Ether Searcher from Conspiracy. I don't remember it. No, it's a draft one. Oh yeah, so it won't matter because we won't have drafted anything, so it's just a vanilla 6/4. Boo. Angel of the Ruins is an artifact creature? It is. XL 2 artifacts or enchantments. Okay, that's legit. 25 cents. Oh, because it's from the Brothers' War. Enters, gains some life. Enters, draw a card. Enters, Meteor Golem, classic. Should have seen that. Your Battlesphere, great. Sandstone Oracle, draw a little bit. Okay, so, duplicate. There's nothing like amazing here. But this is all super cheap. Let's keep looking. Ooh, I'm glad Myra showed up. This might be the highest ranked unset commander. Ooh, I'm interested. Again, I did a medium to deep dive on attractions in my 2022 retrospective, but casting an instant or sorcery and opening an attraction is big. Opening an attraction means flipping one over from your deck. They live in a new deck and they die in a new special kind of graveyard. It's called like a scrapyard or something like that. It doesn't matter. Myra's other ability is we get to exile instants and sorceries from our graveyard and put them on attractions. Choose an attraction you control without a midway counter, put a midway counter on it, and whenever you visit that attraction, i.e. whenever you hit that number, you copy the card. Here's what's fascinating about attractions. Type attraction legal commander, because lots of them aren't legal in commander. There's 22 legal ones in commander, but look, I'm just going to pick the first one, Balloon Stand. I'm pretty sure all attractions are a successful hit on a 6, but this one looks like a 2. And when you visit, if you roll a 2 or a 6, you either create a 1/1 red balloon creature token with flying. Okay, free token. Or you sacrifice a balloon, and if you do, target creature gains flying. Okay, simple. This is not the best one for the effect, but it's good for the example. But look at the different versions. This is a 2/6. This one's a 3/6. This one's a 4 and a 6. And this one, as you can guess, is a 5 and a 6. And I noticed the flavor text changes too. This one is very funny. My primary function is to fold inflatable tubes into joy. That's pretty good. Oh, interesting. The 5 one is 82 cents. The 2 is 8 cents. I know why. If you only pick attractions and you stack them so you only have 2 numbers, 6s and 5s, that means anytime you roll a 5, you hit every attraction, and anytime you roll a 6, you hit every attraction. Check this out. Barbarian class. If you would roll 1 or more dice, instead roll that many dice plus 1 and ignore the lowest roll. It's like rolling advantage in D&D. I guess that's why these are in the Forgotten Realms D&D set. Anyway, I just got that. But this is why in this deck, if we're rolling for attractions, we definitely want the higher number of the 2, because it's just more likely by killing a low die that we'll end up with a 5 or a 6 as our highest. I wonder what the odds are on that. I don't know how to calculate that. But that's why the bigger attractions are definitely more expensive, because as a commander player, those are the only ones we want. I'm going to sort them by USD. Most expensive Storybook Ride. It includes a 5, while the alternate one doesn't include the 5. But this one is 61 cents. That's over our proposed 50-cent budget. And see, the interesting thing about attractions is this is just extra cost. These don't count for our 100. We need 10 of them. We need 10 unique attractions. That's the rule. I mean, Storybook Ride is fantastic. Exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of attractions you visited this turn. You may play those cards this turn. That's going to be a lot of cards. Because we just put this last, we will visit every single one of our attractions if we visit any. Oh, Hall of Mirrors does not have a 5 option. Let's just ignore it for a sec. Haunted House, also no 5 option. Huh. Did they do that for more rares? Tunnel of Love, no 5 option. This only gives us a 2 and a 3 outside of that 6. Tunnel of Love is very funny though. You choose an opponent, you choose a creature, they choose a creature. You either blink both of them or you have them fight. And you choose last, so you get to kind of engineer it. Okay, so I'm having trouble seeing more 5s here. Info booth. Yeah, the 5 is $1.25. And that's just draw a card. Of course we want that one. I wonder if we go for like 4. I don't know what that does. We have to discard the lowest. So if we roll a 4 and a 5, that means we have to discard the 4 and then we have to pick 5, which is a dead number for us, which is awkward, but I don't know. I think it's okay. And if we do commit to the 4 angle, if we wanted to do this, then stuff like Balloon Stand, the 5 one is over 50 cents and the 4 is currently less than 50 cents, but it's just a scale. The 2 is the cheapest. So interesting. Makes sense. Let's go a little bit further. I also just realized that my screen has been zoomed to 90%. There you go. I could probably go one more. There you go. Huh. What do you think of that? Sorry, everybody. I had you looking at small stuff for so long. Cyclonus the Saboteur, Connives. Not that interesting. Combat damage to a player, convert it. If you do, there's an additional beginning phase after this phase. Untap, upkeep, draw. Beginning phase. So we do combat, and then before our second main, we have another untap, upkeep, draw. That is interesting. What Dimir stuff does stuff in our upkeep. And it's going to be something like at the beginning of your upkeep, something. I mean, that should be enough. I mean, Aether Squall Agent would give us a ton of energy. 6 per turn. Returns creatures to their owner's hands. Activate as a sorcery. So we do that in our second main phase. So we get 3 in our first upkeep, 3 in our second bonus upkeep. That means we're only 2 short of bouncing everybody every turn. Cyclonus will be in our hand, which we are able to recast for 7. That's not going to happen. Probably not. I'm going to go buy EDH Rec. Midnight Clock, under 50 cents. Huh. Thopter Spy Network, 2 Thopters. Ooh, Torment of Scarabs. I do like that one. But like all the Transformers, you get that once. I don't know if we can build a deck around it because this is a very expensive commander and you have to do the damage as the plane. And then it converts. To convert it back, you have to do damage again. Every other turn kind of deal. This has taken a while and I'm really enjoying it. So I think I'm going to look for a couple more and wrap up the episode there. I'll put it to a vote. Maybe I'll nominate my tops out of them. Which one you want to see me go a little bit deeper on? I don't remember Vazi Keen Negotiator. Jund, or I suppose Riveteers. Target opponent makes treasures where X is the number of treasures you made. Oh. I thought that payoff would be way bigger. You give an opponent treasure, which is pretty political, but then when they use treasures, not necessarily treasures that you gave them, you put 1+1/+1 counter. That's 1 per spell, and you draw a card. If I were to brew this, I would try to make treasures 1 at a time. I'd be willing to give opponents 1 treasure here or there, be really stingy with it. It makes sense from a political point of view to do a little bit, but the value is just not there. And when I'm looking for a budget commander, I don't need it to be super valued, but it just seems dull. Although, I guess the interesting part is the political part. I guess I just don't want to get into the situation where I'm making 1 treasure, I'm giving away a treasure, and then all of a sudden I make like 3 treasures, and then everyone's like, hey, give me those treasures. And I'm like, I don't want to. And they're like, okay, well then, no longer allies, I'm going to attack you. Keen Negotiator. I guess that's the key in the name. You got to be a keen negotiator to make this work. The interesting thing would be what we are doing outside of treasure. That's a tough one. I'm pretty sure this is just going to be Jund something or other, and Vazi's the commander just for a little extra value. And you spin it by putting in things that make a treasure now and then. It'd be funny if this was blue and you could like give your opponents tons of treasure and then just counter whatever they try to use it on. Anyway, there's a couple counter spells in black and red. They're not great, but it could be funny. Tadias Juniper Ascendant. I don't remember this one. Is this a Universe Within thing? Yep. This is Dhalsim. Okay, I've read this. Hexproof unless it's attacking. Okay. Whenever a creature you control with a reach attacks, untap it and it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So that would include this. I don't think you go super reach with this. I think this is Voltron. We've got hexproof until we attack. So no one's going to mess with our commander. So we can equip and not worry about people sniping the commander under the equip cost. If this is the only creature that has reach, and this is the Voltron target, so this is what we care about. Whenever this attacks, untap it. Okay, so it's good for blocks. And it can be blocked by a creature with greater power. So since we're doing Voltron, we probably want to give it a ton of power, which means it can be blocked by about everything. I suppose the trick then would be to find something that we can add power to it after the declare blockers. I guess instants would work. Things like Giant Growth. I don't love that idea. And this is the time where we don't have hexproof, so it's tough to cast spells on. I mean, the whole point of the hexproof, unless you're attacking, is so that you can equip without worrying about paying 5 for the equip cost. Let's take a look. So I'm looking for type and equipment, and I want to see an activated ability. So it's going to have a colon and then something, 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 and then what? Plus. I was going to say plus somewhere. Okay, let's see what this gives. Oh, and it has to be, all right, of course, USD less than 50 cents and ID white green. Okay, my thing didn't work. Because pluses aren't letters, I guess you have to do that. So I think you can do that by putting the other slash before it. Okay, that worked. Bronze cudgels. We can pay a ton of mana to do it very, very badly. Oh, Dragon Throne of Tarkir. You use this after Dhalsim gets through. You put this on a huge creature that never intends to attack. All right. 2 equipment out of the whole thing. Maybe there's an enchantment that does it. We can pay white with Blessing for a 1-for-1. That can't be that bad compared to that cudgel. Seal of Strength, okay, we can do that. +3/+3, and then land. So we can do this without a lot of mana temporarily. There are ways. Okay, so maybe we can't just do commander damage, but maybe there's stuff we can do. Maybe there's equipment that gives us benefit once we deal combat damage. So it's going to be equipment. You know what? Let's do type equipment or type enchant. No, I'm going to say aura even. Aura. Well, I guess enchantment will cover it. And I'm just going to say it says something like combat damage, something, and then there's a colon because it's a triggered ability. Do triggered abilities have a colon? When this does this, I don't think they do. Well, I'll just leave it like that. Banshee's Blade just grows the more charge counters you get, blood tokens, and more power. I guess if we really want to make Dhalsim unblockable, we could just do that with other things. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. For no other reason than because I could do this forever. At some point, you got to stop brainstorming and you got to put your ideas into action. If one of these commander ideas really jumped out to you and you really want to see that deck become a 99 card budget deck, plus the commander, let me know. If there's an overwhelming response for a specific brew, I gotta do that one. Stay tuned for part 2, the brew. But in the meantime, you keep being you. World's a better place for it. I'll see you next time. If you want more magic stuff, here's another video you might like.